All right, welcome everybody to today's live. We're going to be looking at how to course build in your own backyard. So give me a comment. I'm going to pull them up right here and let me know if you're able to see and hear everything. And we will get started here in just a minute once we make sure that everything is working correctly. Just going to pull up comments here. There's a bit of a delay between when you comment and when I see it, but I'm hoping to get to as many live questions as I can here. And I should have a helper coming to give me a thumbs up in a minute as well. Oh, okay, somebody says ready and hi from New Zealand, here from Ohio. Somebody asks, what if your backyard is only 10 feet by 30 feet? Yeah, I'm not sure if I can increase the size of your backyard, but hopefully I can increase the efficiency of your training. All right, I see lots of people saying they're here. If you could just let me know that you can hear everything as well, that would be great, and then we will get started. Hello from Southeast Queensland. So we have people from all over the world watching today. All right. So I think we're ready to get started here. And the first thing that I wanted to do is take a quick look at different course maps that you may see out in the world. So let me pull up here. I'm going to pull up, let's start with I believe this is a Tomas course. And this is a 1 meter grid. So when we talk about how we're going to build our sequence, the first thing you have to know is what the scale is, what the grid size is for your course map. Here in the United States, it is almost always exclusively a 10-foot grid. But overseas, you will sometimes see 1 meter. I think, let's see, you might see something like this, which is, I believe, another Tomas course, which is a 2 meter grid. Here's Crufts, where they have a 5 meter grid. And here's, my least favorite kind of course map that you might encounter, and that is the no grid course map. And here in the United States, and what we're going to build today is this sequence here, which is a 10-foot grid. So here's our 10-foot grid. All right. To recap, we are here to talk about course building in your own backyard. And I know that for a lot of people, you are having to course build maybe for the first time now that you are forced to stay home all the time and you're not able to go to something like a weekly class where something is set up for you. And this is a skill that if you don't have a lot of practice in it, it can take a long time. And I want you to be able to spend that time training your dogs rather than spending a lot of time setting up a sequence. I have set up a lot of full courses, not at a trial, but in yards, in fields, with very few people, 3 or 4 training partners, and I've set up hundreds of small space exercises here in this yard. And so I just wanted to give you guys some tips and tricks to make it a little bit easier, a little bit faster, so you're more likely to do it and you have more time to train your dog. So one thing that I wanted to show here was different kinds of course maps that you'll see. Here in the United States, it is almost always a 10-foot grid. And I have to admit that if you go look on Bad Dog Agility, if you look at our small space sequences 2 weeks ago, I do not always put the labels on the grid lines because I'm so used to everything always being 10 feet. I made sure to put it on today's for you guys. But if you have a map that comes from the United States and it doesn't have the numbers that let you know, it is almost always going to be a 10-foot grid that you're looking at. But overseas, there's lots of different things it could be. So here we have a Tomas course that's a 1 meter grid. And you can typically tell because the grids are so tiny, the little boxes are so tiny. But I've also seen, Tomas, a 2 meter grid. for Crufts, they had a 5-meter grid. So you always have to know, when you are trying to build something yourself, you have to know the distance between the grid lines, because that's what all of my building is going to be based off of. And so, of course, my least favorite map of all is going to be one like this that has no grid lines. Here, it can be very difficult to set it up. I usually, in this case, will literally try to recreate the map by using the obstacles that I know what sizes they are. And if you have a grid that is unlabeled, for instance, something like this, and you're not entirely sure if it's meters or feet or something like that, a lot of times what you can do is use the size of a well-known obstacle. So weaves are 22 feet or about 7 meters. A dog walk is 35 feet, about 10 meters. So when you're looking at a map, you can use obstacles like that to kind of figure out what your grid size is. But that's the first place that we're going to start in building our sequence. So the sequence that we are going to build live today is this sequence here. I'll pull it up on the screen. So it is a tunnel and 4 jumps. That's all we're going to have to build. And I did this a couple of days ago. I built this and it took about 10 minutes. It'll probably take me a little bit longer with you guys because I'm going to explain what I'm thinking every step of the way. And I'm also going to show you a couple of different ways that you can measure out your course. Now, one thing that I did want to try to do here for you guys, let me pull this up, is we have our close-up view of what we're doing, and we have the global view of the field. So right now you're going to see in the lower right hand of your screen there, you should be able to see the entire field, so that as we build this up, right now all of our equipment is clumped together over there, but as we build this up you can see this sequence take shape. And so that's what we're going to do, and let's go ahead and get started. And when I look at this map, usually something like a small sequence, I typically, if there's a tunnel, I will set the tunnel up first. So that's going to be the first obstacle that I set up, and then I'm going to set everything else up in relation to that. One thing to note is you want to do the best that you can, but you don't want to be overly stressed out about getting everything exactly just so, because that will slow you down. I mean, give yourself a little bit of room to work within. That being said, I personally like to use a wheel to measure out my distances. I know a lot of people know how long their stride is, so they know that if they walk at a comfortable pace like this, they know how much each step takes them, and they use that to mark off distance. So that's a way that some people do. I'm going to show you with a wheel, with a measuring app that if you have an iPhone, you'll have on your phone, and then one easy way that everybody can do. So let's start out here. Let me just check the comments here, make sure we're good. Okay, and hopefully Esteban let everybody know on the other thread that we were coming over to this one. Okay, so let's start with our tunnel. So we're just going to go over here. I'm going to grab my tunnel, and for my space, I usually put the tunnel as far back and as far to the side as I can to give myself enough room to build out in the rest of the field. It definitely helps if you have a straight line of some sort that you can use as a reference. So for us, I use this back fence here. It goes in a straight line along the entire field. That's my first straight angle. My second straight angle that I use is the house/fence line over here. The house and the fence come together at a right angle. So those are my best points of reference. Back here, that back fence actually is not straight. It goes at an angle. And then over here, the fence is at a complete angle. It cuts a diagonal across the entire yard. And so those make very poor frames of references, and whenever I get confused, it's because I allow myself to look at those lines that are not straight according to my map. And I know that some of you ask questions ahead of time. One of the things you struggle with is you go to a park where there is no fence, there is no straight line, there is no frame of reference, and that can be really difficult. And what I would say is I would create one. I would do something to create one, even if it's just taking a jump bar and putting it down on the ground and just always looking at that jump bar and either walking parallel to your jump bar or walking perpendicular to your jump bar, and letting that create your frame of reference. Okay, so let's get back to our tunnel. Let's take a look at the map here. And so here with the tunnel, I'm just going to kind of roughly make it a U, and I'm going to get the tunnel pointed. This is my fence line, so I'm going to get the tunnel pointed roughly the way I want, and then we'll just measure to make sure that we're approximately correct here. So let me just move that tunnel around real quick. So now we have officially begun our course building here. And one thing that will happen to you when you are building courses is that you will, your tunnel may be a different length than what was on the course map. And so I generally try to get the shape approximately correct and not worry too much if I am short a couple of feet. And so that's why I don't even usually even measure the tunnel entrances. I just kind of eyeball it to make sure that it looks about right. And then I usually don't bag the whole thing in case I want to move it in a little bit, but I can end, or maybe both ends here. Okay, so now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to find the next obstacle here. And usually I'm going to go for the obstacle that is the closest to the tunnel. And that's going to be this number 4 obstacle. And I just look at this map and I estimate from the exit of the tunnel to the plane of this jump, so to the top, right, which is right about here. How much is that? And I typically sit here and do something like this and say, well, I think this is about 6 and this is about 3, so I'm going to say that this is about 9 from this tunnel exit to the edge of this jump here. And then I'm going to look side to side and I'm going to say, okay, straight down here, that was 9. Now when I go over, I'm going to call this about 4. So you can see it's not exact, but I'm doing the best that I can. I'm going to call that about 4, maybe 5 here. So I'm going to go 9 down and 5 across, and that's going to be my first wing. So the first thing that we're going to look at here is using a measuring wheel. This is how I typically do the majority of my course building. I think that if you do a lot, it is totally worth it to get a wheel. It's just easy to use, very quick. If you do big courses, I definitely would recommend a wheel. And the one that I recently got actually has meters or feet. You can switch between the two, which means that if I wanted to set up one of those Tamash Tri courses that was set in meters, I could just do the exact same thing that I'm doing now in terms of estimating, but I would be estimating in meters because that's what the grids are. And then I would just, roll out my meters. So I think I said 9 and 5. These wheels are really easy. You just clear out the wheel to 0, and we're just going to go forward in a straight line using the fence to keep me walking straight. I switched it to meters. Okay, well, I don't want that. I thought that was pretty far. Okay, so we're going to go back here. Got it back in feet. I cleared it out, and then here we go, 9 feet. Okay, there we go, much better. And now I'm going to turn at a right angle. I'm going to keep the fence at my back because that's my grid line. And here's a trick. If you do have non-straight lines in your field that make it difficult for you to walk in a straight line because you're always trying to orient to them, look down instead. So I've got my back to the wall, and all I need to do is make sure that I look down and walk ahead 5 feet. All right, so here is where the tip of my wing goes. So I usually just drop my wheel, grab my wing, and it goes here. Grab a bar. All right, so, and actually, if you come over here, come look at the map. I forgot which way the jump is oriented. You can see that I have my jump like this when it's supposed to go like this. So that is the corner that is set. So I'm just going to shift everything around here. And now here is what I do to get my angles right. If you come in close here, I actually am going to take my map and I'm going to line up the jump that I'm setting here with the bar beneath it. So this is at the same angle as that bar, and then I look, is my fence at the same straight angle as the fence on the side? And I don't think it quite is. I need to, if I want to make this match the fence, I need to shift everything like this. And you can see now this angle is not the same as the bar underneath it. So now I just pick up the whole jump, shift it the tiniest bit, and then check my angle again. And that's how I do jump angles. So it's not that difficult. You're just setting one end and then letting the rest of it flow wherever it goes. And now we just pick our next obstacle. So looking at this map, from here I would probably go from number 4 to number 3. And so I'm going to look here, I'm going to say that's about 7, that's about another 6, so that's about 13, and maybe just like 2 feet here. So I'm going to measure 13 and 2. And here, let me show you another way that you can measure. So this is the way that everybody can do this. I can't believe I never really thought of it until maybe 6 months ago when my wheel broke. You have a jump bar, and you know how big your jump bar is. It's 4 feet. Mine is 4 feet. So first, know how big your jump bar is. Know if it's 4 feet, know if it's 5 feet, know if it's 4.5 feet, know exactly how it is. But it's nice if it's 4 or 5 feet. And this gives you a straight 4 feet. And so if I wanted to go 11 that way and 2 this way, I'm just gonna, again, put my back to the fence, hold up my bar, lay it down straight, perpendicular to the fence. There's 4 feet, 8 feet, 12 feet. And we said we wanted 11, right? So the halfway point is 10, halfway again would be 11. So here's my 11 marker, and now I'm gonna pull back to that point, and I want it to go 2 in the other direction. Here's the 2 point. So that is the edge of my jump. Let me grab my map. And so if you don't have a jump wheel, this is a really easy way to set courses. So the end of this goes like this. Now I can pull this bar up. I can set this jump. And then once again, I'm going to check my angle. So again, I need to twist it a little bit. Now we have our next closest obstacle here. Is going to be 3 to 1. So I'm going to say that that's about maybe 5 feet. 3 straight up here is 5 feet, and 2 feet this way. So I want to go 5 up and 2 to the right to set the number 1 jump. So I'm going back to my wheel because that's my favorite. So what did we say? We said 5 up and 2 to the side. And this is just the edge of our jump. This one's really easy to set for angles because it is exactly perpendicular to the fence. So I just look over at the fence and make this perpendicular, and that's one set. Okay, so we have, well, some jump cups here. One more jump to do, so now I'm going to show you how to use this app. This is great. Okay, somebody asked, how come you measure to the edge of the wing instead of the middle of the bar? Yes, this is a really, really good point, and I will get to that. Let me do this last one. And then somebody asked how you're calculating the space between jumps. Okay, so, okay, just looking through here. Okay, so the way that, let's back up just a minute and before we set the very last bar and talk about measuring to the center of the jump versus measuring to the end. So what I've been doing so far is measuring to the end, and this is what I do for all of my small space stuff because I find it to be the easiest and quickest way to set up a small space sequence, and you typically are not going to get too far out of line with when you're only setting 4 or 5 obstacles. There's just not that many relations between the obstacles to trip you up. Now, if I am setting an entire international course that's 120 feet by 100 feet, I will go to the middle of the bar. And hopefully, in that case, I will have something that has coordinates in it. So something like this. This is one of the UKI social distance trial maps that they provided that has the coordinates. And so here you don't have to do all of the estimating that I was doing when I was looking at the map and saying that looks about 6 feet. You've got the actual numbers, so you can just subtract the X numbers, you know, between 2 obstacles and the Y numbers between 2 obstacles and know exactly how much you need to go to the left and how much you need to go up to set your obstacle. And with the exception of tunnels, weaves, and contacts, the coordinate goes to the middle of the obstacle. And in that case, you do the exact same thing that I did. It's just you then take your bar. I'm going to switch back to my view here. Let's see here. So when it's measured to the end of that, you do the exact same thing I did, but instead of setting your wing down, the edge of your wing down, you set the entire bar down right on the spot that you've marked, and then put your 2 ends on either side. So this is preferable with large courses because especially if your jumps happen to be different bar lengths or wing widths, okay, bar lengths or wing widths, then when you measure to one wing and then when you use the other wing to measure to the next obstacle, over time, the 6-inch difference that you might have between your wings and what's on the paper is going to add up, and things are going to start to not be in their right spots. So for a large course, I would advocate putting down getting a really, really long measuring tape that you can wheel out the entire length, which becomes your center line, and then from there you measure off of that line to the side to side for all of your obstacles and lay them all out. I find that is overkill for a small space. So for a small space, I'm just going to measure to the wing, set the wing, set the bar, set the other wing, get the angle right, move on, and I find that it is just as good. Okay, and somebody says, Yeah, so yeah, we talked about the jump bar. Oh, that's Esteban commenting. Yeah, so if we look at this UKI course, for example, so if we look at this UKI course, I might set that bottom tunnel first. And then you can see that the bottom tunnel is, let's see, these numbers, 0 on the up and down axis, 0 is at the top and 40 is at the bottom, or 40 is at the bottom. And there's a center line. So you can see that the rightmost tunnel is 46, negative 16. So that means it's 46 down, it's at the bottom, and it's negative 16 to the side. So now if I want to set that jump up that's to the right of that tunnel, that's at 42 and 3. So that means it's 3 up from that 46, and it's 19, the negative 6 plus the 3, it's 19 to the right. So I would just, from that tunnel exit, I would just measure up 4, and then to the right 19. So that's how I would do it with, if I actually had these coordinates. Okay, and then somebody said, would you do the middle if you don't have wing jumps? Yes, then I think I would. If I was trying to do a course that was winged, I would go to the middle. So yes, I think that those are the situations where you kind of have to go to the middle, and I think for the rest of the time, if it is easier for you to go to the edge, you can just go to the edge. Okay. All right, just looking through comments here. Beth asked, how are you calculating the space between jumps? And all I was doing was looking at the paper and just estimating, you know, saying, well, that looks to be a little bit more than half of the grid, so, you know, 6 more or less, and so that's how I'm doing it. Okay, let's see here. We'll go back to our view. Okay, so here we are again. In the bottom right, you can see that our course is taking shape. We only have 1 jump left to go, and that is the number 2 jump here on our map, I believe. Yeah. So we have the 3, we have the 1, we have the 4, we have the tunnel, which is not used in this, but is used in the nested challenge sequence. The next one that we're going to look at here is the number 2 obstacle, and I'm going to show you one extra way that we have to do that, and that is with an app. So give me just a second to pull up this app and share it on the screen. Okay. So this is the measuring app, and this comes with the iPhone, which is kind of cool. And I knew about it, but hadn't really used it much until recently. Okay, so we have our iPhone here. All right, here we go. So we're going to take away the overview picture for just a minute there so that you can see this iPhone screen. The app is called Measure. So I'm going to pull up this app. One of the nice things about this app is that you can choose between meters and feet. So it'll do both. And it lets you put a point in the ground and then measure from that point. So when it first pulls up, it looks like it calibrated pretty quickly, but when it first pulls up, it usually asks you to move the phone around. There'll be a thing on it that says move the phone around, and you just move the phone around left and right and up, and then that's how it figures out where it is spatially. And then to actually use it, we're going to do our same estimation here. So looking at this map, let's look at the map real quick. Over here, let's look at the map real quick. Okay, so we're going to measure from, let's measure down from 1. And I would say it is almost in a straight line, so I'll just kind of move it off to the side just a little bit. I'm going to call that about, from here to here, I'm going to call that about 2 feet. Here's 10, so that's 12. I'm going to say that's another 5, so I'm going to call this 17. So that's how I'm doing that estimation, down from this wing. 17 feet. Okay, so with this app, you may not be able to see it very well, but in the very, very middle of the screen, and if I'm going to send you guys a link to a tutorial that shows it really clearly. You can see it here actually. You can see that dot, that black dot. And that allows you to basically start a line. So right now I'm putting that black dot on the grass right next to the upright of the wing. And then as you move, you can see on the screen, it's drawing this line and it's telling me how big it is. Right now it's at 4 feet, 5 feet. As I move back, it continues to create that line. What did I say? 17, that's right. So I just keep going back until I get to 17. And then what I like to do, one thing that I like about this is if I move the iPhone side to side, you can see that the yellow line might be at an angle. It might be going off the screen this way or going off the screen this way. So it helps me keep in my straight plane of coming down from that jump. And then I put my toe where the dot is, so I know where it should be. The cool thing about this is it leaves that line and the distance. If I move away and come back, it still has the distance. The bad thing about it is I have nothing to put down on the ground. So when I use this, I make sure to carry something like a pencil that I can put in the ground to mark my spot. And now I am done with the app for now, and I will set the jump. So that is something that you might play with. I find it to be more cumbersome than the wheel, but it's something that you always have. So if you go out to a park and you forgot your wheel, this is something you could use. I personally would probably just use the wing bar method, the 4-foot bar method instead. All right, so I'm going to take off that iPhone view now. And all right, here we are again. And we are going to put, okay, all right, we're going to put our last jump up. I'm going to find the spot that I marked here. Right here, something like this. Here's our jump. Get our bar. And check our angle. All right, so I'm going to line up the bar. The fence does not look like it's where it should be, so I'm just going to alter it a little bit. And there we go. So the last thing that you can do is you can take a look at a couple of the angles. So for instance, on the map here, we can see that number 3 looks like it should be kind of, if you extended it, it should be almost hitting the edge of number 1, just a little bit to the right of that wing. And so then I'll go over here and check that angle and say, okay, maybe I want to tweak it just the teeniest bit so that it's heading a little bit more towards that edge. And then I definitely would walk the sequence itself and make sure that as you go 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, that those relations look good. Those are the most important relations. It really doesn't matter how 1 relates to 4, because you don't go 1 to 4, right? What really matters is how 1 relates to 2 and maybe some of the off courses that are nearby. So then we just bag our tunnel finally. And we are ready to run this sequence. So I'm not going to do that today, but this should not take you more than, it took me about 10 minutes when I wasn't explaining what I was doing. It really should not take you more for a tunnel in 4 jumps. I would say, you know, maybe 15 minutes, maybe 20, definitely no longer than that. So if you find that you're spending a lot of time course building like that, hopefully some of these tips will help you get through that a little bit faster. Let's see. Okay, so people are talking about the app. Okay, somebody says that that it's a little bit blurry. I think that's because we're in a little bit of a lower resolution mode to be able to stream right now, given the internet constraints. If you come back and watch the replay, it is also recording to the iPad in high definition, so that will be high def. Okay, so, oh, golf tees. Anne says golf tees make good markers. That is a good idea. I'll have a pencil, or if I forget everything, I'll put my phone down where the spot is, but then it loses its calibration and I have to recalibrate it all again. Yeah, stakes that come with X pins are really good. Yes, Kathy is exactly right. If you have an iPhone, just go to the search bar and type measure. That's how I find mine. I don't actually know where it lives on my phone. I always just use the app. Okay. Yeah, you might need, in fact, let me pull this up on the screen because I do have a download for you guys. So let me put that up now. And this download has the course map that we just built along with a nested challenge sequence. And it also has a link to the wheel that I currently use that I got on Amazon, and a link to the Apple tutorial on the measuring app. So that will help get you guys through that. And let's see, okay, here we go. And let me just look through the comments and see if there's anything else that you have that I can answer. But I really wanted everybody to not be overwhelmed by course setup. Just take it one obstacle at a time. I typically look for the closest obstacle to the other obstacles, so I have less distance to travel, and I feel like that's going to be slightly more accurate. So let's see. Oh yeah, the map over the jump. Somebody says they like the comparison that I did with the map over the jump. So that's, I view that as a little bit of my own being very detail oriented, so it's like I wasn't happy with the angle until I was really checking it. And then somebody commented, who's a judge, I was giving this tip to our students who are having to course build stuff that we give them, and somebody who's a judge said, oh yeah, that we do that in judges education. They teach us, they had a name for that particular strategy of comparing the map to the bar, but that's definitely how I do it. To me, it makes it a lot easier. I just really line up the bar with the jump. All right. Somebody asked, are all the jumps 11 feet apart? Nope, it's just whatever they ended up being. I think there is some symmetry to this particular course map, but all right, yeah, somebody says basically doing it right enough. Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be absolutely perfect. Okay, the download, somebody asked for that again. Let me pull that up for you guys. Is here. There we go. So baddogagility.com/build, that's where you're going to find the download, and that will have these resources. All right, well, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. You will get better over time. So try this out on your next course build. Try out some of these tricks. Figure out what measuring strategy you like best, is the fastest, and gets you set up as quickly as possible, whether that's wheel or your stride length or using the bar as a static 4-foot measuring device. But I think just taking it one obstacle at a time and figuring out, basically, I'm going to go X number of feet down and Y number of feet to the side and set everything up. Oh yes, sorry. Before we go, good. I'm glad someone was watching because my daughter Hannah has been waiting all day to tell you guys a knock-knock joke so that we can finish off on a happy note here. And let me pull up the screen. All right, yep, no, yeah, come here. You're here. You're good. Come up here, Yeah. Oh, okay, he was going to give you a high five. Okay, here, just talk sort of towards the mic.
Okay. Knock knock.
Who's there?
Robin.
Robin who?
Robin you. Hand over cash.
She's robbing me. I got to hand over my cash. Oh, man, already taking all my money. All right, thanks, everybody. Happy training. Leave us any questions you have in the comments, and we'll come back by later. Bye.